High-level trade talks in China underway right now, while White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow says no decision has been made on the president considering that 60-day extension. He did share this thought.
They're covering all the ground. They're hard at it. They are going to meet with President Xi, so that's a very good sign.
This, as the Wall Street Journal reporting that China is seeking to lure U.S. With pledges of big purchases of semiconductors and other American-made goods, of course, helping to ease these tensions. Here to weigh in, Wall Street Journal editorial page writer Jillian Melcher, Kingsview Asset Management CIO Scott Martin. Jillian, okay, so the debate over tariffs and all that's over. Now the sort of debate here at home is what a good deal looks like. What will be worth having gone through this process? What will justify it? In your mind, what should that look like?
Well, I mean, I think that's still kind of the question that the negotiators are working out, too. I don't think we've had a clear idea or articulated of what victory looks like in this trade war. But, I mean, I do think that extending these extensions is a good idea. You've certainly seen in earning calls a lot of these companies saying this is actually hurting our bottom line, too. It's meant to hurt China, but it's hurting us at the same time. And I think a good deal would be, you know, if they want to buy more of our products, take it. Ease off the trade war, start focusing on when there's truly bad behavior, such as theft of intellectual property, forced transfers, all of those things, doing very targeted actions to punish the bad actors. And I think that's more effective than a wholesale trade war where American companies are also a casualty.
You know, Scott, China, I think the low-hanging fruit for them is to print and spend more money on our goods or just take it from somewhere else that they might have bought it. The tougher stuff, of course, is their May 2025 plan, their goals, which rely a lot on, let's just face it, outright theft of American know-how. And people are wondering, how do we check for that in the future? How will we ever know if they've stopped doing that?
That's my main concern, Charles, is as Jillian pointed out, we could have this great deal that looks good on paper. But we're not going to know that deal is good until a few years down the road when we find out if China, who historically has, lied and cheated their way around deals in the past, if they're going through with it. And that's another concern, Charles, that you brought up, too, is you're right. The state, as it were, in China could print money just to kind of buy more of our stuff to make that look good. The state sponsors so much business in China anyway that state-run companies are growing faster than the private sector in China anyway. They can manipulate their currency, which they've been doing for years now, too. So there's a lot of little tricks and turns that China has already shown that they're not hesitant to use.
Are you happy, though, that at least it seems that the administration is aware of all of these issues, right? It felt initially like it was just about the trade deficit, right? Mm-hmm. And it really has evolved into something that a lot of people who even were against this initially, at least this type of a fight, have come on board to say, yeah, we should make sure we curb this theft and the force partnerships. Are you happy that they seem to be focused on this and then they're not going to let China off with just a simple deal?
Well, I'm thrilled that the focus is not on the deficit. I don't think that was ever the issue. I think that was a fixation. When China sells cheap products, American consumers get cheap products, and I don't think that's a terrible thing. But yeah, I mean, it's really important to focus on holding China accountable for when it's being a bad actor, when it's doing things that are unfair, particularly with intellectual property and property theft. And I do think that's going to be really hard to enforce. I mean, if you look at the state of rule of law in China, you can go to a restaurant and order a glass of wine or order a glass of liquor, and you're not sure if it's going to be counterfeit. They certainly have this culture of saying one thing, doing the other, selling you one bill of things.
A well-earned reputation, right?
Yeah, and I think that's going to be really tricky to enforce. I think targeted action is the way to go after it, though.
What does this mean for the market, though, Scott? If we do get this announcement, first let's just say a 60-day extension, and I would think that would bump the market a little bit. But ultimately, if there's some sort of a deal that includes plans to continue to seek improvements to a deal, because, again, there's no way they're going to get all of this done overnight. But if there's some sort of deal in principle, what does it mean for the market?
I think the markets will like it. Now, I do think as we get longer in this process, which, gosh, guys, has been really talked about or on the front burner now for like a year, if you can believe it. I mean, that's how long this has been going on. So, Charles, as you know, the markets tend to start to look past this stuff. And not to say this isn't a big deal, but it just means that if a deal does get done, if the extensions get kicked down the road, it probably does lift the market somewhat. But I think eventually when a deal gets done, maybe that luster is worn off a little bit in the sense of the market is paying attention to some other things at this point, which is probably a good thing anyway, because we need to focus on fundamentals here at at home.
I think you're right. You know, selling on the news. I mean, if we're at 26,000 on the Dow, I would not be surprised to see a quick spike followed by some profit taking. Scott Gillian, it's always great to see you.
Thank you.